Morning and afternoon teas are much anticipated events in dementia units, and this is when the elderly retired men, husbands of the wives in now the dementia unit, trot over to have their tea, coffee and cake, because now of course it's quiet at home at the unit in the retirement village. Wife's no longer there. If she was a baker, there's no cakes there anymore. So if they can come over to the dementia unit, they can socialise, they can have a cup of tea, watch a bit of TV, see a movie and have a nice time. So it's a very social time, morning and afternoon tea, and it is the time that the husbands or the wives of those dementia residents in the facility come over and partake. And they're always given a cup of tea and a piece of cake. They get to be known well by the carers. They get to know exactly what the person likes in terms of how they like their coffee, milk, one sugar, if they prefer Milo, or maybe a sandwich instead of a piece of cake. All those little niceties the carers get to know, and the relatives get to be part of the day. And they don't have to pay for this service, by the way. If the person comes for a meal, yes, they'll need to pay for that. But for morning and afternoon tea, the carers just give it out, and it's like complimentary service unknown to the establishment, so to speak. Now, in terms of morning and afternoon tea, just keep an eye on the person in the facility, the dementia resident, and their weight, because it's because of morning and afternoon tea. All the Leamington, the cake, the creamy, the sugary, the everything, you know, cakes and biscuits loaded with sugar and carbohydrate and calories, as well as the dessert at lunchtime, which is very thick and creamy and often big portions with ice cream and cream, can you believe it, as well as a sugary cakey dessert. The thing is, you see, a lot of these elderly dementia residents used to have dessert every night at home. You know, they'd have, you know, date pudding and apple crumble and peach sponge, all the favourites. But of course they were on their bicycle back then, bicycling to work and back, and hardly anyone had a car in the early days, and they had big gardens and they were out there hoeing and digging, and it was a very physical active life then. So they could manage to eat all these lovely desserts and baking, which they always had 3 things in the pantry, didn't they? 3 lots of baking tins full. So if someone turned up for a cup of tea, you could have a nice layout of food for them, at least 2 options anyway. Gosh, it was a different life then. They worked hard, the women in the kitchen, didn't they? You know, always making sure that the tins were full for the kids' lunches and for visitors. And so everyone was eating that all the time, but they were busy and active, and nobody seemed to put on weight in those days. But of course, fast forward that to a dementia unit where you're sitting all day having the same food laden with sugar and cream, and you're not exercising to wear it off. Of course, you'll put on the pounds. So it just needs to be kept an eye on. I mean, some people just have half the amount, small portions, that helps. But if you're eating all the food, morning and afternoon teas and desserts especially, the weight can easily go on. So if that's the case, maybe mum needs to go on the diabetic option, or, you know, having sandwiches for morning and afternoon tea rather than the cakes and fruit salad instead of dessert will keep things at bay. Now, another thing to be aware of is that you can easily get hungry in a dementia unit. I mean, there's a lot of sugar and a lot of cream and a lot of all of that, but not a lot of protein, except midday, of course, there's meat. But, you know, there's no snacks really. I mean, if you've not had a big appetite at lunchtime and haven't eaten much, by the time afternoon tea comes along, you can be quite hungry. And there's often, you don't feel like eating when the meal arrives, but you're hungry 1 or 2 hours later, but you have to wait until morning or afternoon tea to get that little slice or something. So it's a good idea to have some food flexibility for your parent, is to give them a box of snacks, you know, muesli bars or little packets of chips or their favourite thing. Maybe they might have liked sweets, but try not to make it too sugar filled, because there's so much sugar anyway in their diet. Something that's got a little bit of nutrition in it, some sort of muesli bar type protein bar thing if they like that. And then keep that box of snacks in the walker, in their carrier walker, if they have a walker, very handy for keeping snacks in, or in their room, bedside table by their bed, because then they've got something to have in between if they get, peckish. Now, if the person is a walker and they don't have their ever-present carrier bag to put their snacks in, just mention to the carer that, look, here's some snacks for mum. If you think she's getting hungry or she mentions that she's hungry, please dish out these, give her one of these snacks to be able to eat, so that she can, fend off the hunger until the next meal or afternoon or morning tea. And the carer will, if they know them well, they'll get to know when they're hungry and they need something extra to eat, and can then get out that snack and give it to them. So it's just a matter of keeping tabs of how your parents managing, and your mother, for example, when she used to eat prior, what sort of snacks she used to eat, when she used to eat, when she used to get hungry, all of these things, part of which you'll know, and just keep an eye on that in the dementia unit, that she's not getting too famished or peckish, and if she is, for you to provide snacks for her in between. So I've written about these topics at length: the resident's rise and the resident's voice. The resident's voice, all you need to know for a relative coming into a dementia unit, and the resident's rise for those residents in the facility and problems that may well arise, and positive practical techniques to be able to help. So thank you for your support. Both of those are on Amazon and my website, pietavalentine.com. Easy reading, good reading. If you're a reader, great. If you're not a reader, still read it because the information's there, clear and concise. Pays to have everything at hand. Thank you for your views and your likes and subscriptions. Those viewing but not subscribing, please do subscribe, because it makes a big difference to these little channels so we can get up and running. So thank you for your support. I appreciate it.